Hello, welcome back to another video on astrology. In this video, I'll be talking to you about the effects of Mercury if it happens to be in your second house. And for this, I'll be referring to Bhrigu Sutram. Bhrigu Sutram is by sage Brighu, but the book that we are referring to is a translation by Dr. G.S. Kapoor, Ranjan Publications, New Delhi. Most of you might know that Mercury is the planet for calculations and has also lots to do with astrology itself. And let's see what Sage Brighu has to say about Mercury in the second house. But before getting into Bhrigu Sutram itself, I would like to discuss with you the complex nature of astrology with regard to the positions of planets in various houses. The first problem we have is the Rashi chart versus the Bhava chart. So, whenever I do a video like this, I often get emails and people send me messages on my WhatsApp saying, are we to refer this from the Rashi chart or the Bhava chart? So, when we say planets are in a particular house, we are actually referring only to the Bhava chart. And whenever we say that a planet is exalted or debilitated, or in its friend sign, or the sign of an enemy, or a malefic, a natural malefic sign, or a planet is with another malefic, a planet is being aspected by another planet, all this is only read from the Rashi chart. So always have, if you have an option in your software, always have the Rashi chart and the Bhava chart side by side. That makes it very simple. So you can see what has really happened in the Rashi chart, and as any planet shifted its house in the Bhava chart. So the Bhava chart is the final word on the positions of a particular planet in any house. The next most important point is that we need to look at how many ways Mercury could be in the second house. So to answer this question, let's get into the second portion of this video. So here you see from my iPad, you can see that I have kept a blank chart ready. Now this is a Mercury in the second house. An example, because this is a Pisces ascendant and Mercury is in the second house. You may recall that Mars does not like Mercury, but Mercury does not consider Mars as its enemy. It considers it as its neutral. But anyway, Mercury is not so happy to be here because Mercury is a green planet and Mars is a red planet. So any relationship between Mercury and Mars cannot be counted as good. Or if you look at it from another point of view, Sage Brighu says that Mars is a natural malefic. And so by virtue of that, when Mercury sits in the sign of a natural malefic, it does get disturbed. So how do you use this information? Whenever you read something about a planet that is stated as good about that planet, for example, auspicious results, then you should expect that only if that planet is in a good state. It should be in a very happy state, as in exaltation, and it should not be very sad like as it is in debilitation, or it should be in the sign of a benefic, a natural benefic like Jupiter or Venus. So we can always trust that Jupiter and Venus are the pure benefics, naturally inclined to do good things. So when Mercury occupies the sign of benefics, in spite of the fact it may not be friendly to that planet, even then you should expect good things out of that combination. When we go into the actual Bhrigu Sutram, you might find certain statements are about the good side of Mercury being in the second. If Mercury is afflicted, then you always see the flip side, the other side of Mercury being in the second house. That has been the regular approach by the ancient Rishis. We will now shift Mercury from Aries to Taurus, and so this is an Aries ascendant. And Mercury is happy to be here because Mercury says, I'm in the sign of a Venus, which is a natural benefic. And you know that Mercury treats Venus as its friend. So you should say that Mercury is very happy to be here. But after this, you can add one more parameter if you want. For example, here Mercury is the third lord in the second house. And it's also the sixth lord in the second house. So by referring to Brihat Parashara Shastra, where the Maharshi has given us the effects of planets in various houses as lords of houses, being in a certain house in, I think, somewhere between chapter 24 or 26. So he has explained all that. So please kindly refer to that. In case you want to know how to do that, I'll show you a sample. So this is how it will be, in BPHS volume 1. So let's look at what he had to say about the third lord being in the second house. So we'll just look at this. So the third lord in the second is not good, because he says the person will tend to put on weight and will not take much efforts, is unhappy, and will have an eye on other people's belongings. Whereas if you look at the sixth lord being in the second house, you see here it's quite different here. It says the person will be, that is number 62. You will see that it says that the person will be adventurous by nature, will be a godfather, and Paradeshi. Paradeshi actually means he will settle abroad. He will go to other countries and possibly settle abroad. He'll be happy, and he'll be an orator, and he'll be interested in his own work. So you will get this side of the effects also expressed in a person's life. It will manifest. So whenever you read a planet in a particular house, try to look at it from as many angles as possible. So this is the approach, but I'll not be doing this regularly for all the lagnas. I have given you this idea. It is for you to follow this method and add to what has been told by Sage Brighu, just because Mercury happens to occupy house number 2. So the next situation is good for Mercury, because this time it is ascendant is Taurus, and Mercury is very happy to be here. Mercury says, I'm very happy because I am in my own house. So whenever planets are in its own house, it's definitely very happy and very strong. So you'll have to read it as also second lord in the second, which is good, and also as the fifth lord in the second house. In case you do not know about the lordship of houses, I've done a video on this. On YouTube search, just type Lords of 12 Houses and you will be able to see my video. In any case, if you look closer here, you will see the word, here you can see Mercury. Okay, Mercury has been written outside the box. This is another way Mercury could be in house number 2. This time Mercury is in the sign of Moon. It's not very happy to be here, because Moon is considered as Mercury considers Moon as its enemy. But this is not as important as saying Mercury is in the sign of a natural malefic. If you extend, if you want to get more information, you could add Mercury is the lord of the first in the second house and also the fourth lord in the second house, which is good. This is yet another example of Mars being in the second house. This time Mars is in the sign of Sun, because Sun owns Leo. You know that Mercury treats Sun as its friend. So Mercury must be very happy to be here. So whenever it is friendly, you should start ignoring the fact that Mercury is in its enemies, is in the sign of a malefic, because this malefic somehow happens to be its friend. So you should consider that and say this Mercury is going to be all right. So please also consider the fact that Mercury this time is the 12th lord in the second, which is actually good. And the Maharshi has said that the person will spend on auspicious deeds. So this is actually a good combination. But also add that Mercury is the lord of the third in the second house. This is the same situation we saw for Aries ascendant. This is another situation where ascendant is Leo, Simha, but Mercury is extremely happy to be here, because it's not just exaltation, it is also its Mula Trikona and its own house 3 times. And that's the reason why Mars hates this house, because it's just the, completely, Mars would be very weak if it occupies Virgo. Now read it as the lord of second in the second house, which is very good for wealth and a double, a bonanza, you can say, because it's also the 11th lord in the second, which is one of the top rated Dana yogas for wealth creation. So this is really good. So let's shift it once again. This time ascendant is Virgo, Kanya, and Mercury is in Libra. So I don't have to repeat it. It's the same as when Mercury was in Taurus. So this is going to be good. And let's do the next one. Ascendant in Libra and Mercury in Scorpio. So whatever I said before for Aries, when Mercury was in Aries, the same applies here. But there's a difference, because Aries is actually the stronghold of Mars, because it's a positive sign of Mars, and it is also the Mulatrikona of Mars is Aries, whereas Scorpio is not. So Mercury will not be that harmed here, but in any case you'll have to accept the fact that Mercury occupies the sign of a natural malefic, and by nature they are totally different. Mars hates Mercury, and in that way Mercury is not doing well here. This is another situation of Mercury being in the second house, but here you can say that the house belongs to Jupiter, a benefic, so Mercury will definitely give you more positive results than negative. And Mercury actually considers Jupiter as its neutral, so Mercury has no problem being in this particular house, and it's therefore considered as an advantage. You could also use the other parameters, like it is the lord of the 11th in the second house, which is very good for wealth creation. And as the lord of the 8th house in the second, it has got some minus points, that if the 8th lord is in the second house, there will be a one-time big loss of wealth. So the person also has to be careful in investment. He will not regain a lost kingdom. So there is a loss of a kingdom type experience that could happen if the 8th lord is in the second house. So this is another situation, Sagittarius ascendant and Mercury in the second house. Mercury happens to be in the sign of natural malefics like Saturn, but it's not that bad, because Mercury treats Saturn as its neutral. And somehow Mercury, Saturn and Venus, they are all together in one group, so you don't have to worry so much about this. So the next ascendant is Capricorn ascendant, and Mercury is in the second house, so whatever I said before holds good here also. But the only thing that changes is this time Mercury becomes the lord of the 9th in the second, which is good. And anyway, for Makara Lagna, which is Capricorn ascendant, Mercury is treated as a benefic, a pure benefic. So there's a big difference this time, because Mercury is also a functional benefic, as occupying the second as the 9th lord. That's good. If you look at it from another point of view, you can say that Mercury is the lord of the 6th in the second house. So this person will have extraordinary luck in foreign countries. He most probably is going to settle down in a foreign country. Now this is Aquarius ascendant, and Mercury is in the second house. This time Mercury is very unhappy to be here. The reason is obvious, because Mercury is in debilitation. And you can also look at it from another point of view. It is the lord of the 8th in the second house. The 8th lord in the second is the Maharishi warns of the fact that a person having this combination may lose his kingdom and will not be able to regain it. So many times I have found extremely rich people losing all their money at one shot whenever they have the 8th lord in the second house. So we have completed all the 12 ascendants, and but before going into Bhrigu Sutram, I would like to tell you that you could add more by adding more parameters. For example, if such a Mercury were to be afflicted by Mars, it's definitely Mercury will be afflicted. And if you add more malefics to it, like for example, maybe Rahu is bracketing Mercury. So Mars and Rahu have bracketed Mercury, and Mercury is a planet which easily gets afflicted when it comes very close to malefics. Or Mercury might be close to the sun, and that could be a combustion. So combustion can spoil Mercury, malefics can spoil Mercury. And another way is to think about maybe, for example, Mars is here, and then Mars actually, looks at Mercury by its seventh house aspect. Not only this aspect, you could also use special aspects like, for example, Mars might be in Leo, and Mars has its eighth house aspect on Mercury. Even that is also a big spoiler. Another situation is Mars is in Sagittarius, and Mars has its fourth house drishti, the fourth house aspect on Mercury, and spoils Mercury. So these are the various parameters that you should always keep in mind, because it's not as simple as you just take a book, buy a book and start reading. Okay, I now have this book, Mercury in the second house, I'll tell you the results. It's not so easy. For example, Mercury might be very strong in Shadbala. In such cases, you can even ignore the fact that it is even debilitated. Okay, so Shadbala is the final word on the strength of a planet. In terms of the mood of the planet, the final word is actually Vimshopaka. So nowadays, computer horoscopes give you all these details. So keep all these facts in front of you before you try to judge the result of planet being in a particular house. So now let's get into Bhrigu Sutram proper. Lagna Dvitiye Buddha Phalam. If from Lagna, Mercury happens to be in the second house, what is the result? The first words are Putra Samriddhi. Translates as, if Mercury is in the second house, the native will have a good number of children. Vachalaka. He will be talkative. This is how Dr. G.S. Kapoor has translated it. But Vachalaka could be enchanting others with the skills of communication. The person speaks so well. Veda Shastra Vikshanaha. It means that the person is well versed in Shastras. Sankalpa Siddhya Samyutaha. Dr. G.S. Kapoor says this person is determined and contented. And interestingly, when I looked up spoken Sanskrit website, I found the following meaning for Sankalpa Siddhya. Accomplished by mental resolve or will. So something to do with the mind, the power of the mind to get great strength. Dhani Gunadhyaha. Dhani is actually wealthy and full of good qualities. The next word is Sadguni. Sadguna is, as you can see here, having good qualities, virtuous, etc. The next word is Pancha Dashavarshe, 5 and 10, 15. Pancha Dashavarshe Bahu Vidyavan. And Dr. G.S. Kapoor translates this as, he will attain distinction in academic pursuits in his 15th year and will have enormous financial gains. We have seen this happen many a times when a very good Mercury is in the second house, and the person has done extremely well when they were 15 years old. Now, Sage Brighu speaks about the other side of the coin. What if Mercury is afflicted or has a problem with malefic planets? Papa Yute, Papa Kshetre, Ari Nichage. Ari is actually enemies, in the house of enemy, or Nichage is it debilitated. Papa Kshetre is in the house of malefics, in the signs of malefics. So any connection with malefic planets in any way results in Vidyavi Hinaha. Dr. G.S. Kapoor translates it as, if Mercury is associated with the malefic, or is in the house of a malefic, or is in the sign of debilitation, as in Pisces, the person will remain uneducated. But when you look into the actual meaning of Hina, you see it's actually not completely devoid of education. It could mean there is some shortage, maybe a loss in education, maybe the person failed during a particular year in the examinations and had to repeat a class, etc. So it doesn't mean all the time denial of education. It might mean some obstruction. Something was missed out, something is weak, lower or weaker than, academically not very strong. Kruratvan Bhavana Vyadihi. If strongly afflicted by Krura Grahas, the person will suffer through Vata diseases, windy troubles. Pavana Vyadi is, in Ayurveda we have the Kapha, Vata and Pitta. So this deals with Vata. So whenever you read classical textbooks like this, you should also try to learn more than what the book says. For example, instead of just thinking about what Mercury in the second house might do, you can also think about the fact that if Mercury also connects to Vata diseases, that's why it has been mentioned here. Or in the first word, we saw that a good number of children. Where did that come from? It came from the fact that Mercury is usually more, because it's like a copy, more than one. Could also mean twins. The second house is the house of Kutumba, the family. So the increase in family, the size of the family. So you will also have to look at the nature of Mercury, because somehow the nature of Mercury, the house, which is the second house, must have lots to do with what is being predicted. Shubha Yuti Vikshana Dhani. It means if Shubha Grahas aspect or is with Mercury, the native will be wealthy and educated. Educated here is Vidyavan. The last portion is Guruna Yute. If with Jupiter, which is the topmost amongst the natural benefics, Guruna Yute Vikshite. Vikshite is aspected by Va, in which case Ganita Shastradhikarena Sampanna. It means that due to the power of calculations, the person might be a business analyst or anything to do with analysis, maybe astrology, maybe mathematics, or anything that is closely linked to mathematics. So today the world of computers is definitely connected to Mercury. We know that from this Ganita Shastradhikarena. Due to the reasons of being an expert in Ganita Shastra, the person will be a very wealthy person. Sampanna. So we have come to the end of this discussion. These videos are primarily made for my students, and these videos are also available on patreon.com. The link is displayed above, and based on your feedback, I will continue to do more such videos. If you have any other topics in mind, please suggest the topics, and whenever I find the time, I'll try to do the videos for covering those topics as well. We have come to the end of this video. In case you have any doubts, please type them out in the comment section, and whenever I find the time, I'll answer them for you. And see you soon in my next video.